Hey guys, and welcome back for another video. So I've seen in the comments that a few of you guys want an updated guide on how to install add-ons for Guild Wars 2, so that's what we'll be talking about today. I'll be giving a brief overview of each one of these add-ons, how to install them, as well as how to set them up. After that, we'll be talking about how to install different variations of these, and finally we'll cover how to get all three working together. As before, you may need some decompression software for a few of these files, and if you don't have something like that, feel free to click the link in the description to download WinRAR totally free. The file names for each one of these add-ons are identical, and so to make this a little bit easier, I'm going to create a folder on my desktop called GW2. As I download each one of these add-ons, I'll be dragging it into that folder, and in addition to the file name in parentheses, I'll be adding whatever the name of that add-on is. If you're only installing one of these add-ons, you can pretty much ignore this step, but if you're trying to install two or all three of these add-ons, you're going to need to know which one of these files belongs to which add-on. The first add-on I'd like to talk about today is the Mount Swap add-on. That because I do see a lot of comments asking how to get this working, and I know it's changed a little bit since we last talked about it. The functionality is pretty straightforward. This allows you to easily hot swap between your mounts. More specifically, this allows you to have all of your mounts on the press of a single button, and since the last time we talked about it, they've included the Roller Beetle mount as well. To install this add-on, click on the link for the Mount Swap add-on down in the description, and you'll just need to scroll down to where it says installation. Here you should see a link for new releases, and by clicking that you should see Guild Wars 2 mounts.zip. Download this file and open it up with WinRAR or comparable software, and the file we're looking for here is the d3d9.dll. Once you've downloaded that file, go ahead and open up the directory in which you installed Guild Wars 2. By default, that's your C drive, program files, and Guild Wars 2. On my screen, it'll show up a little differently because I actually have the game installed on another drive, but you just need to make sure that you're wherever the game has been installed. And inside the Guild Wars 2 folder, you should see a bin64 folder, and that's where we're going to be installing this add-on. From here, all you have to do is take that file you just downloaded and drag it into that bin64 folder. Now that it's been installed, you can get in game, log on to a character, and you should first open up your keybinds. To do that, just hit escape, go to options, and click the mouse on the left-hand side. Scroll down until you see the word mounts, and you should see there's an option where you can bind each one of your mounts. In order to get this add-on to work, you're going to need to do that, and I recommend using some keys that you think you'll never hit. For me, I'm going to use Shift and the F1 through 6 buttons, but you could use whatever you like as long as it's a key you're not going to accidentally bump. Once you're done with that, make sure you've unbound the key for mounting and dismounting, and then you could press Shift, Alt, and M together to bring up the mount add-on settings, and I recommend doing this while you still have your keybinds open because you're going to be making the settings match. As you can see in the add-on settings, there's a space next to each of the mounts, and here you just need to click Set and make sure you use the same keybinds you made in-game on the add-on. As a final step for this add-on, pick a key that you'll summon this reticle or wheel of mounts. You may notice there are actually two fields where you can set this key, and the only difference is that one is going to force your mouse to the center of that reticle whenever you summon it, and the other will allow you to move your mouse freely. That's it for the installation, but if you want an added bonus feature to this wheel, you can actually set what happens when your mouse is in the center when you activate it, and that'll just summon either your favorite mount that you can designate, or it'll summon the last used mount if you'd prefer. Next up, let's talk about the second add-on, or Arc DPS. On its own, Arc DPS is a damage meter for Guild Wars 2, so if you're someone who likes to see your outgoing damage or the outgoing damage of your party members, you could feel free to download just Arc DPS for that purpose. But if you're interested in a build template or loadout system for Guild Wars 2, then you could also include Arc DPS build templates. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the concept, these build templates will allow you to save a preset of your gear, your skills, and your traits. That way, if you decide you want to experiment or try a different build, you can be a little bit more creative without having to worry about eventually reverting back to your old build if things don't work out according to plan. To install this add-on, head down to the description once more, and this time click the link for Arc DPS. Scroll all the way down this page until you get to the very bottom where there's a link. After clicking clicking that link, you'll be brought to a page with several files, and we're just going to download the d3d9.dll. If you'd also like the build templates feature, just click on the folder called build templates. Once inside, download the file d3d9 arcdps build templates.dll. Once you've downloaded both of those files, head back to your Guild Wars 2 installation directory or the place where you installed the game. If you're only installing ArcDPS, just take that d3d9.dll file and drag it into the bin64. To add build templates, simply drag that DLL into the same folder. With the installation now out of the way, we can head in game. Pressing Alt, Shift, and C will bring up your area damage, and this is typically how you'll be monitoring your DPS if that's something you're interested in. There are other functionalities tied to this that I don't typically use, but if you're curious, just head back to the installation webpage link down in the description, and about halfway down it'll show you all of the keybinds. If you also installed build templates, you can access that by holding down Ctrl, Shift, and D. The menu that comes up will be blank, and that's mostly because we haven't saved any templates yet. To test this out, simply go to the bottom of this UI where it says name, and type in a name for your preset. Just next to that, you should see traits, skills, and gear. Next to each one of those, there's actually a checkbox that you can tick on or off depending on what you'd actually like to save. Once you're happy with everything that you'd like to save for this particular character, just give it a name if you haven't already and press save at the bottom. That's basically all there is to creating a preset, but if you really want to see this thing in action, I recommend saving your current build and then messing around with skills and traits until you're basically working with an entirely different setup. Then open build templates back up, click your preset, and press load to watch all of your skills and traits update live without the press of a single button. Lastly, today I'd like to talk about the Guild Wars 2 Hook add-on. If you're not familiar with Guild Wars 2 Hook or reshades, sweet effects, anything like that, this is actually a great way to make your game look a little bit better if you're not happy with your current visuals. Now, this isn't going to give you a better graphics card, just something to throw out there, but depending on the settings you choose to use, you can make your game look quite a bit different than the stock or vanilla Guild Wars 2 graphics. To install this add-on, just go down to the description and click the link for Guild Wars 2 Hook. Right on the homepage, you should see a Guild Wars 2 Hook.zip file, and again, we'll be using WinRAR or comparable software to decompress this file. This time, instead of a d3d9.dll, we actually get two folders, and you can just drag those to the root of your Guild Wars 2 installation. Notice how I did not say your bin64 folder, and that's because one of these two folders is in fact another bin64 folder with a d3d9.dll file included. By dragging these two folders directly into your Guild Wars 2 folder, you'll just be merging those files and folders together. Since that's basically all there is to the installation, you can just head back in game. Once in game, just hold Shift and F2 to bring up the Guild Wars 2 Hook settings, and at the very top of the screen you should see a red box with a plus symbol on the right hand side. Click the plus symbol and name a profile for your graphics. Once you've named the profile, you should see a few of your effects with the word continue next to them. Click continue and you should see some parameters show up, and at the very bottom of the screen it should say finish. Now that's pretty much it for the initial installation, but if you notice, your game probably doesn't look a whole lot different, and that's because by default all of the effects are disabled. On that same screen, you should see a list of effects with some checkboxes next to them. By checking each one of those boxes, you'll enable that effect, and you can see that it updates in-game live. Just below those effect toggles, you should see some parameters for each one of those effects, and by simply just changing the numerical values in those fields, you can make an effect more or less intense. So if you like an effect, but it's a little too intense for you, you can turn them down. Now that's the core of the Guild Wars 2 Hook setup, but there are a few parts of this that I do want to clarify. Firstly, if you go to the Guild Wars 2 settings tab, you should see a fog amount with a value of 0. Now what this actually does is disable some of the distance fog in game, but in some areas like the desert or areas that have high environmental effects, this can disable those altogether. Most noticeably, if you're walking through the desert with this value set to 0, you won't see any of the sandstorms, and additionally you will see the mountains way off in the distance, but they're not actually completely rendered into the game yet, and as a whole I just feel like it makes the game look worse. So my advice to you is to set a value between 0 and 1, and I typically just set it to 1, which is the Guild Wars 2 default setting. If you end up wanting to change the key that summons the Guild Wars 2 Hook settings menu, or if you'd like to set a key that toggles the effects on and off so you can see the difference, click Settings inside of the Guild Wars 2 Hook UI, and here you should see a field for either one of these. Just make sure again that you're not overwriting any keybinds you already use in-game. So now that we've covered each one of the add-ons, how to install them, and how to set them up in-game, we can talk about how to get these working together. And depending on which combination of these add-ons that you'd like, it's going to be a little bit different. Now, this is the part of the video where I'm going to recommend that you go ahead and download any of the add-ons you're interested in and move those files into the GW2 or whatever spare folder you have in order to make this as easy and painless as possible. Since all of these files are named d3d9.dll, be sure to, in addition to that d3d9.dll, put some parentheses and name it whatever the add-on actually is. Not only does this help with confusion, but it also prevents the files from trying to overwrite one another when bringing them into the same folder. First up, for Guild Wars 2 Hook as well as the Mount Swap add-on, grab the add-on as well as bin64 folder from the Guild Wars 2 Hook download and move those to the root directory of Guild Wars 2. Next, you want the d3d9.dll file from our Mount Swap add-on, and make sure there's something in parentheses so that you can successfully drag that into your bin64 folder. Next, open up your bin64 folder, and there should be two files that have d3d9.dll in their name, one of which should have mounts in the parentheses, and the other should be Guild Wars 2 Hook. For Guild Wars 2 Hook, rename that file reshade64.dll. Both the R and S in reshade should be capitalized, and it does actually matter, so make sure you do that. Finally, just rename the d3d9.dll with mounts in its name to d3d9.dll with nothing else included. With that done, you can now run both of these mounts together. Next up, let's talk about Guild Wars 2 Hook and Arc DPS. First up, go ahead and grab the bin64 and add-on folders for Guild Wars 2 Hook and move those into the root directory for Guild Wars 2. Just like last time, make sure that ArcDPS's d3d9.dll has ArcDPS in parentheses, and then drag it over into the bin64 folder. If you'd like to add build templates, just be sure to grab that DLL and move it to the same place. Next, you just want to open up the bin64 folder, and just like with our previous installation, we'll be renaming the Guild Wars 2 Hook d3d9.dll file to reshade64.dll with the R and S capitalized. Next up, you want to make sure you rename ArcDPS to just be d3d9.dll without anything in parentheses. And unfortunately for this particular combination, we're actually going to need another file. So head back to the link for ArcDPS, scroll about halfway down where you should see in bold, "Can I load another wrapper? d3d9.dll," and then at the very bottom of that paragraph, you should see "You can try using the loader found here." Clicking the word "here" is a link to the file we need, and that's called d3d9_chainload.dll. To finish the installation, simply drag that new file into your bin64 folder, and now these add-ons will finally work together. Now we only have one other two add-on combination, and that's ArcDPS and the Mount Swap add-on. Here, you're just going to want to take the d3d9.dll for ArcDPS, the mounts, and if you want build templates, include that DLL as well, and move those all into your bin64 folder. Open up the bin64 folder, and you're going to want to remove the parentheses from ArcDPS, and we're actually renaming the d3d9.dll for mounts to d3d9_chainload.dll. And with that, guys, you now know how to get all the different combinations of these working together, but let's talk about now how to get all three working at the same time. First, I'd recommend taking both of the folders for Guild Wars 2 Hook, so the add-on and bin64 folder, and moving those directly into the Guild Wars 2 root directory. Next, open up your bin64 folder and you should see one d3d9.dll file, and that's actually your Guild Wars 2 Hook d3d9.dll. We're just going to rename that to reshade64.dll with the R and the S capitalized. For Arc DPS, you can take the d3d9.dll file as well as the Arc DPS build templates if that's something you want, and move those into your bin64 folder. And finally, you can take your d3d9.dll for mounts and move that into your bin64 folder as well. Open up the bin64, and one more time, we're just going to rename the mounts d3d9.dll to d3d9_chainload.dll. So now you should have every conceivable way that you could get these things to work together all ironed out. I hope you guys found all that helpful at the very least. Before I wrap this up, and I know it's been a long video already, I'd just like to cover a few quick things about add-ons in general. Firstly, I would highly recommend bookmarking any and all of the add-ons that you're currently using, and I say this because every time Guild Wars 2 gets a big patch, it tends to break the add-ons, and they'll need to be updated. So whenever this happens, you'll need to go back to these sites, download those d3d9.dll files, and one at a time slide them back into that bin64 folder to make sure everything still works. If you look at the Guild Wars 2 Hook homepage, you can see in red text that you'll need to have Guild Wars 2, so the actual game graphical settings, set to shaders on high, as well as native render sampling if you want everything to work out as intended. As a final note, if at any point you're struggling to get these things working either together or at all, you can delete the bin64 folder altogether, and all you'll have to do is relaunch the game for it to repopulate. This is a really good reset button if you've accidentally named something the wrong thing or you've just placed files where they're not supposed to go. If you need any additional help, feel free to hit me up in the comments or on my Discord, and I'll try to walk you through it. Just know that if I can't recreate your problem on my PC, there's really only so much I can do, unfortunately. But with that, guys, that's pretty much everything that you need to know about at least these 3 add-ons and how to get them to work. I did my very best to try and make this as straightforward as possible, so as many of you out there as want these add-ons can have them. As one quick little nugget of information, these are not going to get you banned from playing Guild Wars 2. I always get one comment asking if this is gonna get them banned from the game. I would not cover these add-ons if I thought they were going to damage your account in any way, so don't worry about that either. Anyway, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.